streaming tonight, so we're going to try. We're going to be a little bit more formal than normal. You know how informal I am. Well, you don't, Dr. Jones, but I am pretty informal. But I'm glad that everybody was able to come tonight. Thank you so much for coming out in the rain and just joining together for this really important subject. And gosh, I don't want to say luminaries, but there's some really impressive people here tonight. So I am really happy that we were able to get the people to come tonight that are going to be speaking to us. So with that, I want to tell you guys this afternoon, by the way, I'm Ginny. There are a lot of people here that are new. And I'm Ginny. I'm the president of Richardson Area Democrats. I appreciate you all coming out tonight, and let's have a nice evening. I noticed this afternoon when I was doing the name tags and the sign-in list that probably only a third of the people that were signed up tonight are actually patron members. And by patron members, I mean people that are either currently on a monthly recurring payment to Richardson Democrats, or they've made a payment, like some kind of a donation in the last 12 months. We have around 187 members that are current members. So that's a pretty good number, but we really would love to invite the rest of you to join RAD as patron members. We are able to do things like this, get together at establishments that need to close down for us, and we appreciate 4 Bullets for being our place for the last, gosh, I don't know, 4 years, something like that. Yes, they've been great partners with RAD. Thank you. And on that note, I was just told that we have sponsored a table. Their picnic tables outside, which is where we usually meet, are all sponsored by different organizations or people or whatever. And we have sponsored one, and we have a plaque on the table out there. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it just got put up like today, so this is the first time I've seen it, and it's kind of exciting. And of course, we're thrilled to be able to be that kind of a partner with you guys, and yeah. Yes, and so that's what we're going to do. Our members are going to be able to come up here and actually paint the table. We can paint it any way we want to. We can get crazy if we want to. He said that we just can't say things like bad things about certain people. So anyway, we won't do that. I know I'm on camera, so I'm being nice. So welcome to all the new and not seen in a long time faces here. It's great seeing so many people. I mean, how many people are here tonight for the first time? That's like a lot of people. And there's also a good number of people that I haven't seen in years. Sarah Depew is here tonight. She ran for HD 67 back in 2018, I thought. I was going, God, how can it be that long? But anyway, we're glad to have her, and we're going to have her talk in a little bit. And just, it's great to see everybody here tonight. For those of you who are not regulars, I'm going to back up just a little bit. This year we're focusing on each month on a different Democrat issue. We focused on civil rights last month and had some excellent speakers at both meetings. This month, in honor of Women's History Month, we are focused on reproductive rights. Tonight we have some really special guests who will be talking to us about different aspects of this issue. We'll be hearing from our speakers and then have a panel Q&A afterwards. They're going to sit up here. So if you can hold your questions and comments until that time, and do remember what they're saying, so you keep a hold of that question, and let's have a good conversation when they get done. I think you guys are going to be pretty happy with the content tonight and the availability of this kind of a conversation. So I am going to start tonight. Lupe Valdez came tonight. I'm very excited. Come on up. She surprised me, so she's not in my my thing, but I want to give her the opportunity to introduce herself to anybody that she hasn't been able to yet. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. As you've heard, my name is Lupe Valdez, and I'm in a runoff. The runoff is in May. I would like to say a couple of things, but it'll take too long. In 2005, I took over an overcrowded, understaffed, unsanitary jail that beat up minorities as routine. And so we started from the very top. That if you were in the military, you know, stop the bleeding. That's the first thing you want to do, is stop the bleeding. So first we stopped the beating. Then we cleaned it up. The mentally ill have a fascination with their body odors, and they smear it all over the walls. So from the 6th floor, you could smell it all the way down to the 1st floor. So the next thing we did was clean it up. And then we worked on employees. And then we worked on improvement of the inmates to get them jobs. We had welding, machinists, dog training, bicycle repair, and about 20 others. I don't want to take the time to name them because there's quite a few. None of those are available now. Not a single one of those. And the place is going back to unsanitary. There's a reason why I'm running, not because I want my old job back. I'm smart enough to do a lot of things, but because I want to continue the process to get it back to what it should be. Lupe Valdez, running for Dallas County Sheriff.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you guys remember, but I'm sure you do. Lupe ran for governor in 2018. So we're very lucky to have you as our previous and hopefully future sheriff of Dallas County. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Representative Mihaela Plisa has been actively fighting for women in Austin for the last year and a half. She was unable to be with us tonight. She needed some time off, so she's traveling. But in her stead, she sent Sarah, who's been working with her closely. So I'm going to have Sarah talk to us a little bit about what Mihaela's doing in women's reproductive rights.
Thank you so much, Jenny, and thank you, Richardson area Democrats. I am so thrilled to be here, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what these incredible speakers have to say and learning even more about reproductive rights. So yes, I'm Sarah Depew, and I'm here on behalf of Representative Mihaela Plisa, and she wanted me to come here and send a message to you all that she is working very, very hard for you, advocating for you on lots of issues, including reproductive rights. She has just opposed Republican efforts at every single turn to try to restrict access. She has fought for exemptions having to do with the health of the mother, victims of incest, violent crimes, minor children carrying pregnancies, you name it. And yes, we need more support in Austin, obviously, to get success with those. However, with her pro-choice colleagues, Mihaela Plisa has been able to get 3 bills signed into law, one of which actually expands Medicaid coverage for women for the full 12 months postpartum to try to make sure that they get the help that they need to ensure their safety. You guys may have seen Representative Plisa in the news recently. She's been talking about her own personal story with IVF and trying to grow her family. And do you guys know that she has a petition right now that you can sign and participate in that's going to Governor Abbott to say, hey, protect IVF rights? Are you guys aware of that? All right, well, contact me because I'd love to have your signatures on it. We need the governor to see that IVF has support in our state. Reproductive rights has support here. So I'd love to get your name on that signature. Her seat, I'm sad to say, well, I don't know if it's sad, but it's the most competitive seat for any Democratic incumbent. It was narrowly won, very, very hard-earned, well-earned seat, and she is the right representative to represent this district. And so she needs our support. So I know she's the incumbent, but she's going to need all of us to chip in some way to make sure she's going back to Austin. She shows up for her district, she delivers for the district, and so now we'd love to send her back to continue doing the good work that she's been doing. So anything you can contribute, whether that's a few hours of your time, a few dollars, whatever it is you have, all of it adds up and makes a difference. So please come see me. I've got a sheet over there where we can contact you afterwards. Come talk to me, anything at all. But thank you so much for having me here, and I look forward to hearing you guys speak. Look forward to learning a lot. Thank you.
Mihaela is the representative from my district. My precinct is the only precinct in Richardson that she is actually representing. That's part of her district, but she's also one of the very few, precious few Democrats in Austin. So it's important for all of us. When we can't have our own Democrat representative in our district, we need to support those people that are in districts close by that we can access. So thank you so much for coming tonight. We're going to start the evening with a word from Reverend Daniel Kanter. He is the senior minister at First Unitarian Church of Dallas. He's been with them since he moved to Dallas in 2001. He's the recent past chair of the Clergy Advocacy Board at Planned Parenthood Federation of America. So this is an issue that's near to his heart. Among many other accomplishments and associations, Daniel is an author, writes for the Dallas Morning News editorial, and has been a guest on the radio for PRI The World. We're honored to have him with us tonight, so come on up, Reverend, and tell us about how you and your church are engaged in the fight for reproductive rights.
How long do I have? Okay. Give the preacher a microphone, and you don't know what's going to happen next. So I'm a Unitarian. Just to clear this up, Unitarians are not Unity Church. Unitarians have 500 years of history. Some of our famous people had last names like Adams and served as president of the United States. Susan B. Anthony, who led a lot of the women's rights to vote movement, etc. Theodore Parker, who coined the term the moral arc of the universe, Ben Sir Justice, Ralph Waldo Emerson, so many, right? So we're Unitarians, and I serve the church in Dallas. So I've been there 23 years. I'm going to just give a quick little history of that church and what we've been doing around Repro, and then sort of dash to what we're doing now. Anybody heard of the Roe v. Wade case? So in the 60s and 70s, early 70s, there were people sitting in the pews of my church with the names like Ann Richards. On her knee was Cecile Richards. There was Louise Raggio, who, if you know locally women's rights and law, Louise made it possible for women to actually sign a check at a department store when they needed their husband's signature, right? So my church has been a place where progressives gather since 1899 in Dallas. Those people sitting in those pews, Ellen Solander, who's a good friend of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Louise, all those people were sitting there in the 60s when our ministers were taking women to the Gulf of Mexico to get on ships, to go out into international waters to have abortions, okay? So we've been doing this work a while, and what happened in the late 60s, early 70s is our group of women, the Women's Alliance, started to study the issue of abortion. They were actually split on this. They weren't really sure if abortion was right, but they came down with Ginny Whitehill from Planned Parenthood in North Texas on the issue of agency, that a woman should have, even if they didn't agree on what abortion was, a woman should have the right to make that choice. And so they started this study, and in walks a member of that group with a woman named Norma McCorvey. And the group in my church started the Roe v. Wade case by going out and finding her lawyers, Linda Coffey, Sarah Weddington, and they started writing the first amicus brief to the 5th District Court. So that's sort of the beginning of some of this work. It came and went throughout the years, right? We got a little passive there. We thought this was all sewn up for many years. And I'll just skip to what we've been doing recently because that's enough little history, right? So about 9 years ago, 8-9 years ago, a member of my church who was working at the clinic at Greenville and Royal, Southwestern Women's private abortion clinic, which was founded by Dr. Boyd. Dr. Boyd was a young doctor sitting in the pews with Ann Richards and all those other people when he heard the minister, Dr. Rabel, end his prayer with, "We pray in the name of all helpers of humankind." And Dr. Boyd said, "I want to be a helper of humankind." And so Dr. Boyd, before Roe, started doing abortions, and when Roe passed, opened that clinic. Southwestern Women's became the largest abortion providing clinic in the country. So fast forward through all that, about 9 years ago, a member of my church who's a counselor in that clinic calls me and says, "I need you to come up here and say a prayer and bless a patient who's having an abortion." And I say to her, "I got 15 staff members and 1,000 members and a lot to do, and I can't just drop everything and drive up there and do that. So let's figure out something sustainable." I'm strategy, sustainability kind of minister. So we started a chaplaincy group inside the clinic to do a few things. One was to be the friendly voice and the friendly face of faith on the inside of the clinic. On the outside of the clinic, the face of faith was yelling at patients. On the inside, we were receiving stories. We were praying with patients. We were just laughing with them sometimes and holding them and doing whatever we could. We realized we were also doing ministry and chaplaincy for the staff who were under a lot of duress, even before all these laws started. So I started this chaplaincy. We had about 12 or 13 clergy, Jews, Christians, Unitarians, all kinds of people. And we spent about 6 hours a month in the clinic so we could cover quite a bit of time. And we sat with patients and we heard every story there is about people going in for an abortion. We heard the stories from the 18-year-old girl who was graduating high school and trying to go to college on a scholarship. We heard the 13-year-old girl who got into a relationship with a man upstairs in her apartment building. We had the mother from Highland Park who already had 3 kids and had enough money to do whatever she wanted. Most of our patients were women of color, poor. Most of them had kids already and were just trying to advance their lives. So we sat and we received and we held and we prayed and we answered questions for years and years until SB 8, okay? So here's the thing, here's the number I want you to keep in mind. We saw 100 patients a day for abortions for 6 days a week, okay? So that's 600 patients a week, okay? You can multiply that into months and years and whatever, okay? When SB 8 hit, that was a 6-week ban, we went from 100 patients a week to 30 patients a week with only the ability to serve 15 of those patients a week, okay? So do the math, and now where are all those people, right? So I go into the clinic as the chaplain, and I'm looking around, and I say, where are all these people? Where are they going? And what are we doing with the 15 that we're just turning away? They said, we can't serve them because the law changed. So I said, why don't we start taking people to New Mexico, to the sister clinic in Albuquerque. So next thing I know, I get a call from Albuquerque. We're going to start this program you came up with. I was like, wait a minute, just an idea. I imagined buses and all this stuff. And I went up to Albuquerque with the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice, and we raised like $200,000-300,000 to start a travel program, which is what we call, which transports people who need abortions to Albuquerque. That program started on the week after SB 8. It continues to today. Every week we have between 1 and 10, maybe 12 travelers that we go with a chaplain to New Mexico, there and back, procedures and home in one day. We realized what they needed was they needed 1 day of child care. They were hiding, some of them were hiding from their families, so we're going to help them get back in a work day. And a lot of them had to get back to jobs. So today, we still travel with between 1 and 10 a week. Okay? So what's the math on this? Okay? 10 people out of the week minus the 600, where are those people? Okay, this is the tragedy that is happening. We don't know. Maybe some of them are getting themselves to other states. Maybe some of them are figuring out home remedies. Maybe a lot of them, we see birth rates going up or having children. Okay, you know, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, all that, right? But a lot of people are not having that choice and that ability to get what they want if they want an abortion today. And that's a big number, and that's one clinic in North Texas. You know, you think about all the states with what we call no access states or low access states, from El Paso to Florida. Just think about all those people. You can multiply the numbers. We are living in an unseen tragedy that has to do with racism and poverty and issues of white supremacy. Okay? Can I get an amen? Amen. All right. I feel like I'm preaching up here. So we take those travelers, and we don't care if it's 1, we don't care if it's 10. We're supporting them. It's all funded from New Mexico. We fund the chaplain and the volunteers who help, and we don't care who's going. We're going to help them, okay? So in the meantime, during this beginning of this program, the clinic closed because as soon as Dobbs came through, there's no abortion. So the clinic had to close. So I said, how do we replace that hub of referral? And my theory is, and my more recent theory is, use the enemy's tactics against them. So we all know about crisis pregnancy centers, right? Faith communities building quote-unquote clinics that have been lying to women for many months. I used to talk to them when they came into the clinic in tears because they've been terrorized by the crisis pregnancy centers, lied to about the week at which they were pregnant so that they wouldn't have an abortion. And then basically it stall until it was too late, past the 20-week ban when we had that. And then they were young people, all those people I named, who were then forced to pregnancy or get out of the state. Remember, most of the people that I'm dealing with are under the poverty line and can't just fly to San Diego and have a nice lunch at some restaurant on the beach and have an abortion, right? So what I said is, let's replace the clinic with a hub. So in 5 weeks, we are opening what we call the Truth Pregnancy Resource Center. It is going to give free sonograms. It is going to provide access to our abortion travel program. It is going to give non-discriminatory adoption information and connection, because we know also a lot of these adoption agencies discriminate against same-gender couples and non-Christians. And it's going to give resources to have the pregnancy. But it's going to start from the truth, and we call it Truth Pregnancy Center because it's in the name of Sojourner Truth, who said, the truth is powerful and it will prevail. So that's 2 things we're doing at our church. The third thing we're doing is we created an organization called WISE, Wholly Informed Sex Ed, which teaches our version of comprehensive sexuality, which we teach to our teenagers. We've been teaching it since I was a teenager, but it's been adapted through the years. And now we're teaching that in community around Dallas, in places that need it. We realized what we had was some of the parts of Dallas have the highest rates of repeat teen pregnancy. And that was the beginning of it. How do we interrupt that cycle of poverty? So we created WISE to go out and do education. the last thing we're doing is, and it's something you can get involved in if you're part of a congregation or a faith community, is I helped found a national organization called SACRED, the Sacred Alliance of Communities for Reproductive Dignity. And SACRED does intersectional reproductive justice framework curriculum teaching to members of faith communities. So we're in 200 communities in 30 denominations so far. We've been operating for 1 year. This is a movement building organization because we believe, again, the tactic of the enemy, what they started doing in the early 80s was organizing in faith communities to convince people abortion was a sin. First Baptist Church downtown in Dallas was pro-choice, but they flipped that whole narrative. And so Sacred is a movement-building, narrative-flipping organization, and we're working with 30 different denominations, 200 congregations. And if you want more information on that, you just Google sacreddignity.org, and it's a beautiful movement to get people to really understand these things. Because we like to think we understand a lot of this, and there's a lot to it. We're going to hear some more about intersectionality. There's a lot to this reproductive justice issues. It's not just abortion. It's taking people's rights away to keep people poor, basically. I used to say this when I first moved to Dallas 20 years ago, and the city of Dallas was doing all kinds of stuff around children's health insurance, and I was saying, this is the beginning of the war on the poor. And this is what we're in. We're in the middle of that war on the poor right now. And it's unseen, because now go back to that number, and I'll finish right now. I'm rushing, but it's good. Okay, good. Go back to that number, that 600 number. You know, there's a lot of poor people who cannot afford to get themselves anywhere, and now we got signs on roads leaving Texas that are pretending that it's illegal to drive through and get an abortion in New Mexico. So fear, fear, fear. Everything the government does on this issue is BS. The SB 8 nobody has been sued except for Dr. Braid, who was in San Antonio when he put an article on the front page of the San Antonio paper and said, I did abortions after 6 months. He got sued by 3 people. All 3 cases were thrown out of court. So the point here is that all that political stuff they're doing is just fear. And who it affects are the travelers that we're helping, because we hear it from them. And those numbers, that 600 people who are seeking abortion every week prior to SB 8, down to 10 that we know of, a lot of that is fear. Every time the Attorney General is on the front pages of the paper saying that we are going to, we are going to cross over with district attorneys, and we're going to start taking those liberal district attorneys to task, that's just fear. The stuff on the roads out in West Texas. What's at stake politically in some of this, and I'll just end with this, because this is something we're watching. And I work with, I am consulted with the Center for Reproductive Rights. There's another organization, if you have money to support, you should. They're big, tall tower lawyers in New York City, but they're doing reproductive justice work all over the country. I talk to them probably every week or 2 weeks, so we don't get in legal trouble. And the Center for Reproductive Rights has warned us that if the district attorney, if the Attorney General can pass a law that allows other district attorneys to sue people in not their districts, we're in big trouble. Because then anybody who goes on my travel, then I am liable in helping them, because I don't have the protection of the DA, which I do have in Dallas. Crusoe is your man. I have sat down in a backroom meeting with him, and John Crusoe has said to me, I am not going to prosecute you for anything you have done. And at the moment, we're not doing anything illegal. I'm clear about that. But if they change these laws, it's going to get weirder. And if those laws in West Texas get weirder and we got checkpoints and sonogram machines and every person under 40 is getting a sonogram, we're in a world that we never even imagined. That's not going to happen. I can't even imagine that, but I think I said that in the last presidential election. So these are the things that, from my point of view, that we have to just be thinking about. I'm not here to like get your applause. I know we're doing good work. We're doing advocacy work. We're doing education work. We're doing direct service work, and we're doing resourcing work. And we need to multiply this by about 400 in the states between Texas and Florida. Yeah. And we're trying to work on that as well. Sacred as the organization is one of those things. So I appreciate your time. I rushed through it, but I think I got through a lot. Yeah. All right.
Wow. I think we're going to have some questions for you. Next up, we have the honor of being joined by Dr. Tiffanny Jones. She is a board-certified and distinguished physician and reproductive specialist with a passion for women's health. Her expertise in obstetrics and gynecology, coupled with her specialization in reproductive endocrinology and infertility, has made her a leading figure in the field of reproductive medicine. Dr. Jones currently serves as a dedicated physician at the Conceived Fertility Center in Frisco and Dallas, and has received numerous accolades and awards since 2011, when she became a member of the Alpha Omega Alpha Medical Society. Her insights have been featured in various media outlets, among them Yahoo News, NBC5, and Cosmopolitan. We're grateful for her for stepping into this conversation this evening, Dr. Jones.
Thank you. I'm going to try to follow that. That was really amazing, and I feel like I really need to step into more faith, one, and then advocacy, and so I'll definitely be volunteering my time. I would have never thought as a fertility specialist that my patients would be affected by things going on in the government, because everyone, now my regular voice is very high, so that's why I'm trying to not be loud. I don't try. But because everybody wants to build families. Everyone has always had a problem, not everyone, but some people have always had a problem with abortion. But IVF and building families, we didn't think was going to be at this intersection, and it is. And it's because you don't think they're coming for you until they're at your door. So what happened in Alabama, for anyone who's not aware, is a patient got into a private facility that housed embryos, and unfortunately dropped those embryos that did not belong to them but belonged to other couples. And an embryo is a microscopic group of cells that has reproductive potential. And it doesn't look like a baby, but when that happened to those couples, and my heart does go out to those couples who lost their embryos, they filed suit, and they wanted to not have the typical rights that property would have. They wanted their embryos to be judged as people, and the Alabama Supreme Court agreed. Well, as a fertility doctor, that poses a very big problem, because we freeze embryos, we test embryos to try to help build families. And if there's a criminality attached to that, providers will become very wary of the type of care they provide to the 8 million families that have been, or 8 million babies that have been born from this process. So just to put it into really basic terms, I would never do some things to a human being that we do to an embryo. And we do these things to an embryo. One, there are genetic disorders that we would like to test for. Couples come in with things like cystic fibrosis or sickle cell, Huntington's disease, things that you would not want a child to be born of. And you can screen an embryo for that, but you must test it to do that. Families that need IVF and have no other means, like same-sex male couples, women who don't have tubes, they don't have fallopian tubes that allow fertilization to happen in the body. They don't have any other access. So if you have doctors that now cannot perform these type of procedures at a high success rate, then you're going to go back to how we performed IVF almost 50 years ago, where we produce very few embryos, we don't test them, the success rates are in the 10 to 15%, when now they're in the 50 to 60% success rates. Still not very high, but much more likely to help build families. And that's what everybody says they want, right? I've had patients come to me after this Roe versus Wade, thank you, decision was overturned with pregnancies that were ectopic. So a pregnancy that is not viable, it is in another part of the body that is not the womb. And I had a husband look me in my eyes and say, please don't let my wife die, because we didn't know if the hospital system was going to allow us to perform the necessary care for this patient, because now she's pregnant and now none of us know what to do. It has wider implications than anybody would have really thought if they would have given it thought. But we can see now that they didn't. So I'll be here to answer questions and then offer my time. But I just wanted to let people know that it doesn't just stop at abortions and women's rights in that respect. It's also in building families that we didn't think was going to be a part of it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jones. And I'm sure, are going to have some good questions for her as well. And finally, we'll round out the evening with our RAD member, Elaine Campbell. Elaine just ran for Dallas County Tax Assessor. You may have seen her on the ballot. She told me at our last meeting that she has put together a presentation on the economic impact of reproductive rights being so severely restricted in Texas. So I asked her to join us tonight. Elaine is an empathetic and dedicated Dallas community organizer. She's currently a national organizer for Planned Parenthood Federation and an advocate and advisor for the nonprofit organization In Defense of Black Lives. She has a BA in sociology from UTD, a postgraduate paralegal degree from SMU, and attended the Master's of Science in Legal Studies at Cornell Law School. Elaine, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Jenny. Reverend Kanter and Dr. Jones definitely covered a lot of what information I have, and so this probably won't be too long. I'm looking forward to questions that people have. But one of the things that I did want to bring, since this is a democratic organization, I want to make sure that when we are talking to voters and educating people about the importance of voting for legislators who will support not restricting not only access to safe and legal abortion, but autonomy of reproductive health care all around, that they understand the economics of it. So one of the things that I always tell people, and I do have a presentation that I will share with Ginny so that maybe people who want to be able to share it can also have their own presentation with their friends or with their family, because that's one of the things that the group that I work with does. We help people put together their own presentations so that they can share it with their community groups. So there are people who are in three different groups. There are people who are antis, and it doesn't matter what you say, what information, what data, they're going to be antis. So I don't really spend my time or my energy with that group because that's really a waste of time. But then there are people who they don't understand the history of abortion. And if you talk to them, and even if they regularly vote Republican, that if you speak to them and that you give them real information, that they start to understand, oh, okay, this is actually bad for everybody. And those are the people that this really is kind of geared towards. And then, of course, there are people who are authentically pro-choice and want to know more information. And, of course, this is also the group that we want to share this with. So basically, one of the things that many people don't know, I didn't know until I started working for Planned Parenthood, is that abortion in our country was 100% legal until like around, very much legal and kind of in practice until the 1800s. At that time, OB-GYN was not even a practice for medical professionals. That did not become a practice until around 1849. In the 1800s, when the American Medical Association was formed, and during that time period, only men could be doctors, so there were no female doctors. And the reason that abortion laws started coming into place and criminalizing abortion was because the specific reason, and this is proven by data, it's not like a theory, it really is, people have admitted that this, was because they did not want midwives to continue to get money. They wanted the money for people who wanted abortions to come to the men. And they did not want midwives. They wanted to start eliminating, because the midwives were taking care of everything regarding anything that was related to women, because gynecology was not even a practice. And so when it started becoming a practice, they did not want women to have that as an option. They did not want women to have the option of when and how and if they wanted to have children. They wanted to take that option away. They did not want women to have economic choices. And that is absolutely the reason why abortion laws started taking place. So during that time period, so those laws started passing, and we know the advancement of that and how that came to play. There were even laws that were coming into place. I don't know if people are familiar with the Comstock laws, Andrew Comstock, where he wanted to not even allow people to be on birth control, not allow birth control to be mailed, and it was specifically targeting women. It had nothing to do with health. It had nothing to do with faith of any kind. There was nothing like that. It was specifically targeting not allowing women to have economic choices. So then, when we finally did see Roe v. Wade get passed, immediately the number of women who were able to finish high school raised immediately. The number of women who were able to enter college, go into law school, go into a medical professional, have advanced degrees, immediately increased. Immediately. And so I want to make sure that we all understand that, and I do have, which I will share with Jenny and with anyone who's interested, the actual data to be able to share with people. We are able to provide through Planned Parenthood. By the way, I'm here representing myself. I'm not here representing Planned Parenthood. I just want to make sure you know that. But I am able to provide like exact data for people if you're wanting to share this type of information in your groups while you're talking to people. I really think that it's important to get this information to people who are consider themselves independent thinkers, so that we're able to share with not just Democratic groups, since this is a major election year, so that people understand that targeting reproductive rights, targeting autonomy of reproductive rights, reproductive access, and laws, any laws that are specifically restricting reproductive access are 100% targeting the economic options for women, period. And it makes our state and our country less safe. It actually increases poverty in our state and in our country. It increases the number of incarcerated people in our state and in our country, and it makes us all less safe. So that is one of the things that I think that it's important for us to focus on as we are talking to different groups. And I absolutely love the fact that the Reverend he actually mentioned that, just his own anecdotal knowledge, that the majority of people who came to him, so the majority of people who have accidental pregnancies are on some form of birth control, okay? And it fails. Most of the people who actually seek abortions already have children and know that another child is not going to be, it's going to be awful. It's going to be bad for their life. It's going to be bad for them mentally. It's going to be bad for the current child that they're trying to raise, and economically it will destroy them. So those are the things that and I want to make sure, and so that's the information that we have data that we can share with people to show people that economically, because one of the things that I want to tell people, and I know this from the legislative leaders who I work with, trying to explain to people based on humanitarian reasons why these laws are bad does not work. But if we focus on that it is economically bad for our state, it is economically bad for our city, it is economically bad for everyone, can work. And we have data that shows that. So that's what I wanted to share. And I look forward to any questions that anyone has.
Thank you, Elaine. We're going to ask the three of you to come up here, and I've got a second microphone. That's what it is. And I want anybody that wants to ask a question. Catalina Garcia is here. Dr. Catalina Garcia is here tonight, you guys. I just want you to know she's on the Board of Trustees for the Dallas County Community College. Yes, Dallas College. And she's going to be running, her seat is up for election this May 4th. So I'm glad you're here tonight, and if you can maybe a little bit later come up and tell us a little bit about your campaign. All right. Anyway, sorry, I didn't know she was here. Y'all come on up, and we'll, I'm going to ask that anybody that has a question, if you could come up like to a point and use the microphone so that everybody can hear mostly on the YouTube, so that we don't have just dead air and wild answers that nobody has context for. So I'll hand you the.
This one? This one? Okay. Just while you're waiting.
And
Dr. Garcia and her husband Roland are members of our church too. So, we're always in good company down there. So thanks for being here too.
All right. Let's, well, here's Frank. Frank's going to jump right up. Here you go. Come up here, please.
I don't need a microphone, but I guess I'll use it. I was going to ask the Reverend about Amarillo. Did the city council pass the road ban?
Yeah, I believe they passed these sanctuary city laws. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know all the ins and outs of that. Somebody else might. But whether they pass it or not, my point is that it's all fear. So what we're hearing from the travelers is, oh, we thought, we heard from a friend we can get help through you guys, but we thought it's illegal to travel outside the state to get an abortion. So it doesn't matter, like that's my point, is like a lot of these laws, they're not enforced or enforceable, but they are fear, and fear is a motivator. That's why those crisis pregnancy centers did their job so well. And by the way, $20 million a year from the state, your tax money goes to crisis pregnancy centers and has been for many years. I'm not going to be able to apply for it. We thought it would at one point. We were going to, because we're actually helping people get abortions, so that's against the rules. But it's all fear. So apparently, one of my chaplains drove out there, and they're like big red and black and white signs that say abortion travel is illegal and all this stuff, and it's all baloney. But it's just what demotivates people from their own agency, and that's the point, right?
And I did have a follow-up question for the doctor and the Elaine. I was curious about the Supreme Court coming up next week, taking up the... Yes, thank you. I couldn't pronounce it. And what's your opinion of how that might work, or what will happen if they outlaw it? That's a complicated question, I guess.
No, yeah. So I don't know. So what's on the table? And I also am not an attorney, but my understanding of what's on the table is for there to be additional restrictions for it, so that it will be harder for people to get, and for the current FDA approval to be reversed, which it's been in place for 20 years. So if that does happen, there are states, by the way, that it's already illegal, but the states that it's currently legal, if that does happen, then the additional restrictions would be in place. I'm sure that there will be additional appeals for that, or people not understanding what is happening. But the legal professionals who I've spoken with think that the likely of that is low, but you never know what can happen. And the reason for that is because for something to be FDA approved for 20 plus years, and then for that to be reversed, I'm not aware of that ever happening before. So I'd like to know your opinion of that as a medical professional, your understanding of that.
I'm not sure about reversing on non-clinical data, and I'm not really well-versed in what's going on there, but I will tell you how it affects the bedside and counseling. So as a fertility provider, not all pregnancies that are conceived are going to be viable live births. Some of them, some pregnancies, as we all know, will affect the mother's life. And this pill, mifepristone, is the abortion pill, and it would help to decrease surgical risk by not having someone to undergo a procedure that has complications when they can use just a oral agent for the same end result. So if that came to not be available, then you're going to have to, if it's even illegal to do the procedure, now you're putting women, or those who identify as such, at risk. And unnecessarily. And so again, I don't know about reversals for non-clinical data, but yes, things can get pulled off the market if you do find risks that are after using a medication for a long time, but that doesn't seem like what the motivation is behind this.
I wanted to mention that I saw a headline today. I didn't have time to read it, but it said that there's a decrease in the number of women that are using even the pill or some kind of preventative type situation for pregnancy, because there's been so much, to your point, Reverend, fear mongering about the effects of even taking the pill. So, there's so much that goes on. I think it was the New York Times that was reporting on that, but there's many fewer women, young women especially, that are using even the pill because they're being scared that there is some kind of a bad effect of it. So that's, it goes further. It starts this way and it gets further and further. Next question.
Reverend, are you familiar with the Campers?
The Campers.
Yeah, they're an
I
organization.
used to work for the YMCA.
Yeah, no, it's not like an underground railroad. It started on Facebook, and they're transporting women and paying for women's procedures.
Is this a group in Chicago?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there has to be a million different efforts here. As I said, those numbers, we can't even count the number because we just start traveling from West Texas all the way to Florida, and we're going to pass
Well,
through
I have to
so
say,
many
I've
people.
wanted to drive around Amarillo with a group of college-age girls and yelling out the window, I'm pregnant, just to see what they would do. But,
You probably.
They might question me about being pregnant, but, I just saw a statistic that abortions are increasing. So,
Yeah,
and,
I think
and
in other
hopefully with-
states. Yeah, right.
Well, and hopefully with birth control being available now, and this month, at the end of this month, in Walgreens and CVS. I have a college daughter.
Yeah.
So I sent her a bunch
Sure.
of, after,
Morning after pills.
morning after pills to hand out.
Yeah, we
And
give out morning
and
after at the front desk of the church also.
To other people to, go in and buy.
Yeah, but that
and
shouldn't
send
be
them out.
contraceptive. I think to your point, Ginny, that there is a lot of misinformation about contraceptive. In the clinic, we used to see this all the time. Women, they tell me all the time they thought if they took the pill, it would give them cancer and all this stuff. And so education's actually really important in this regard, to your point. So what are we talking about? Yes, there's got to be a lot of different strategies. My point also is it can't just be advocacy. It's got to be advocacy, education, direct service, and innovation. And that's what we're trying to live into because the needs are so broad. I mean, it's as our sister here said, this is not just about abortion. This is not about this is fertility. This is awareness. This is body awareness. This is LGBTQIA issues. This is all kinds of things. And every law that comes through by the people that are elected by the state of Texas is, they're chipping away. And we were talking earlier. The next thing is this Alabama case and how it becomes the launching off point for personhood. Personhood leads to a national ban. National ban makes it, we're going back decades now. We're going back centuries, right? So, what is the goal? And it goes back to what you were saying. It's as I was saying, this is all economics, and this is keeping people poor,
and also us raising better sons.
There's that too, yeah. I mean, I'm like invited in white male, straight male, and I'm just trying to be the best advocate and ally that I can be.
I have 3 sons, so my goal was to make sons.
So I truly appreciate everything you've all said. I've studied this a long time. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Go
I just
ahead.
wanted to respond to one thing, too, that you mentioned about abortion numbers increasing. One of the things that has been correlated with abortion increasing is sex education decreasing, which is exactly what you were saying. And that is one of the things that the same people who are attacking safe and legal access to abortion are also attacking sex education, which is ridiculous. And that's one of the things that is provided by a lot of organizations. And when people learn age appropriately, learn even about consent, learn all of those different levels, then when we see that happening, then the number of people who find themselves pregnant and needing an abortion actually decreases. But anyway, I just wanted to raise that. Yeah.
I was reading about New Mexico the other day because I ran a healthcare system there for many, many years. And it's not twice as much as it's been. I mean, the numbers of abortions coming from Texas far outweigh anything in New Mexico and other things. What I really want to say is I actually really like to get to the point, and I love everything you've said about the economics of it. It's labor force. It is building a labor force. The Republicans do not want immigrants. It's building our own labor force. That's what we're doing. It's very clear. It has been for years. That happened back in the 1800s. And I think that becomes the scariest part of it. If you've got money, most of us, if we had a son or a daughter right now that needed an abortion, we could pay for it. Absolutely. And we'd get them the care they needed. Everybody knows that. The Republicans know it. The governor knows it. Everybody knows it. And I think that, boy, I want to get involved with your church. but it really gets down to we're trying to build our own labor force and keep immigrants out. Then we're using women to do it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And not have women be part of the labor force.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Just on this point. So we had Jeff Charlotte, author of The Undertow, which is a book you all should read. The Slow Civil War. He was at church last week doing a lecture, and one of the things he's done is embedded himself in with the Trump campaign people, and he'd go into people's homes where they're flying, all kinds of crazy flags and stuff. And what he has learned is that the sort of deep state Trump supporters believe there's a coming war, and it's either coming with us or it's coming with China or somebody, and abortions are bad because it reduces the numbers of potential soldiers. So there's a militaristic element to this that is eating away at the fabric of our society in ways that we have no idea, because that is so far from the way we in this room are thinking. And this is not to create fear, but just to create awareness. So read Jeff's book, because he goes into this kind of stuff really deeply. The book's called The Undertow by Jeff Charlotte, S-H-A-R-L-E-T. He didn't pay me that to tell you that, but I brought him to Dallas because I thought his book was brilliant. And it's both hopeful around solidarity and organizing, and it's scary as hell around going deeply into these. They're not even QAnon like you imagine QAnon. These are like your neighbors here. These are people who live down the street. So
I wanted to add to that every time there's a war, it's the people that are in poverty that signed up because they need the money and there's a job. So the majority of the people that actually go to war are folks that are in the poverty level.
You had mentioned that you have the data to support everything that you.
Yes, I do.
It's horrible that it comes down to economics, but having said that, where is that available, and can we start?
Yes, I will send all of that to Jenny.
Distributing that.
Yes, I would definitely send all of that to Jenny, because Planned Parenthood actually has a whole focus on the economics of abortion, and I'll share that with you.
Thank you.
And it's very important to have that. And,
yeah, definitely. I mean, because we can all hear the numbers and the data tonight, but to have that information in writing it helps us be able to say something, because one of the things that I've found in my own family, my family is very fundamental Christian, anti-abortion, and they're seriously uninformed and misinformed. And so when you say something to somebody like that, they're like, well, what about this? And you're like, what? But if you have the actual information, you're like, that doesn't make sense to me. But if you have the numbers, if you have the data, the information, it helps educate people better to be able to say, debunk these things. Do you have a question?
So, Reverend, I'm really inspired by what you're doing, and I'm wondering, well, I'd like to open this up to the whole group here. When we think about helping women get access to reproductive health care, what do you think, beyond being engaged politically, what is the most effective way that we can enact change?
I can tell you. No, I will definitely say what I think is the most effective way, and I know it's a plug for Planned Parenthood, but I think that community mobilizing and teaching people and having conversations with people has been the most effective way. And that can be just, I know people who, in fact, we have a supporter on my team who, after one of the groups that we were in, she sent a text message to all of her family and friends and told them, because she had never shared this with everyone, and told them, I've had an abortion before, I think that abortion should be legal, and she's also a devout Christian, and she does community mobilizing teaching in her church, and educates people about the fact that reproductive health care and reproductive health care autonomy, the importance of it, and how it all ties in. My personal belief is one-on-one or group conversations with people who trust you and you have a relationship with is the most powerful way to help people understand the importance of it, so that it's not just a newspaper article or something like that. And so that they understand, and also so that people understand the intersectionality of the restrictions of safe and legal access to abortion, to all of the other issues, like you were saying, like crime, LGBTQ, I put plus issues, just all of the other issues. They're all in, civil rights. The same people who are attacking those rights are also attacking all of those rights, and then understanding why, and having those real conversations that are data-based. I think that's the most important, powerful way.
I definitely concur. I'm also from like a millennial generation, so I'd have to also say that social media has been a double-edged sword when we're talking about like birth control and people saying, it causes cancer and stuff like that. Like I see that all over TikTok and Instagram and things like that, and so I find that educating people and really meeting people where they are, right? And so if social media is where people are, then you have to be on social media, you have to be active, you have to be debunking, you have to be having those conversations, even if they're not one-on-one in a sincere way like we're used to. Times are changing where you have to meet the masses where they are. And so my partner is very active. He has like 13,000 followers, and I have our reproductive endocrinologists who have almost millions of followers and are trying to educate on, like when the Alabama issue happened, going on the news and then making stories to let people understand like the nitty-gritty part of it. And so, I know that we're of all ages in this room, but, we have to also figure out how to meet people where they are.
I want to jump in there on that one. The person who introduced me to Dr. Jones is Dr. Jessica Shepard. I met her in December, and she is, I would say she's I don't want to use the term influencer to, she's got a lot of followers. But what I have found in following Dr. Shepherd is there's a lot, they put out a lot of content. And if you elevate that content, you're talking about, you're pushing out a doctor's, you know, data and information and education, and I think that's effective to, you know, to some people, not everybody obviously, but I think it's going to be effective to actually follow people who are factual and informed and actually like promote or share their information.
Thanks for the question. I mean, I'm an institutionalist, so I believe we have to use our institutions to leverage for good. And that means like this group and whatever groups you can find. But I think it's three things just to add to the conversation. One is patience. They turn Roe over in 50 years. So like the work is sacred that we're working on a 50-year timeline. We don't, a lot of us aren't going to be around for this. And we just have to take a breath. Because if we're always pants on fire, everything has to happen tomorrow, we're not going to be effective. I mean, there are immediate things, yes. Second thing is money. So go back to my friend Jeff who came last week. He said because he's in all these different organizations, he went to this meeting of like this, you know, like gun rights, you know, like fundamentalist group, and they had raised like $100,000 a day for a month to fight their cause. And he was then he went and he was talking to this group that was trying to like work against them, and they had raised $30,000 in like the same month, right? Like, we have got to do better. We have got to leverage money. And the third thing is solidarity, and that's part of what, you know, I'm just going back to Jeff because he's so smart. He teaches at Dartmouth, and I don't. But solidarity is what we build together and where we stand shoulder to shoulder in whatever setting we can. And that means we do not hide. Like, we're on live streaming. I don't hide. I'm not afraid for myself. You know, I know there's a lot of more vulnerable people than me, but I'm there in solidarity for whatever cause. Because what I know is the next cause is we're going past this personhood thing. We're going to get that. This whole election is going to have a huge piece around transgender children. I raised a transgender child. I know what it means. Most people in this room, I'm telling you don't know anything about it. But if we don't know anything about it, the people listening to the news with the Republicans don't know anything about it. It's fear. It's the next target. Who's after that? You know, who's after that? We have to think beyond our small, you know, core interests to always be considering the solidarity of what we can build together. So, you know, this whole thing with immigration and Supreme Court is a part of what we're talking about tonight. You know how many pregnant women are getting raped or whatever, and coming across that border just trying to like find some safety and care? That's a huge thing. And we're putting up barbed wire in the river trying to keep people from doing that. And so solidarity, money, I don't know, we got to leverage a lot, and we have to be patient. That's my contribution to this, that question.
I think I'm going to say one more thing on that. That's democracy. And I read this past year, democracy is bothersome. And that means get up and do something that's uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable to have these conversations sometimes. It's uncomfortable to put yourself out there like Daniel's doing. But if we don't do that, we're going to lose. So, you had a question.
Well, I wanted to tell you that I agree with you because I taught government and history at one time, and I read the paper most days, and 12% of our populace elects our government officials. 12% voted in the primaries. And for presidential elections, it's probably about 33.33%. So that's why you get the people in office, because other groups organize, and the Moms for Liberty, for instance, started out as a very, very small group, and then they got bigger and bigger and bigger and nationwide, and they're the opposing group to what we're talking about today. So the more you can organize and get people out to vote, it's crucial. And that's what I told my son, if you're going to change anything, you have to vote. Because look at who runs Texas politics. And the only way you're going to change it is to vote those type of people out of office. So, and I agree with what you said about telling people, but you got to get to more people than one person.
Who has another question? Thank you. You're going to take another question?
Could you speak to the Christian nationalist backbone to all of this suppression? All three of you, maybe.
I mean, so as I said in the talk, the Baptist Church was pro-choice until Roe v. Wade, and then so what happened there, and this history is well documented. I can't now. I'm just blanking on the name of the university.
Falwell?
It's Falwell's.
Oh, yeah. Liberty.
No, it was before that. It was before that. But the Supreme Court was trying a segregation case because this school was trying to keep students from having relationships across race, and they lost in the Supreme Court. Rehnquist was the one outstanding vote, and he ended up being Chief Justice appointed by Reagan. So what happened coming out of that decision was Falwell and all these big evangelicals who we would now call Christian nationalists, they met, and this is one day meeting, and they said, what's the position, what's the thing in the country that's going to give us political leverage? And they figured out that abortion was what they were going after. 50 years later, we've got a Supreme Court that's politicized. We had Trump, who was, and even before him, the Bushes, those, they were pushed forward by these powerful evangelical forces. The thing about Christian nationalism is it's even gone beyond even those guys. Christian nationalism are now militarized, and they believe the state is the enemy, and they're ready to take up arms. This is, their Jesus is coming through the clouds with a 47, and like what we would have called conservative evangelicals 20 years ago are going like, what? No, that's not what we thought. And there's a violent strain here. I mean, if you read my emails 2 summers ago, whenever that was, around SB 8, I was getting Christian nationalist screeds of how I was all kinds of things I don't want to repeat. But the theology was violence, was more than Christianity ever was. I'm a Unitarian, so we're not about the cross. We're about the teaching of Jesus and all other wise people. But the violence is what we should be paying attention to here. And there are, 400 million guns in the U.S. or something? I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm not a gun owner, but I know responsible gun owners, but we got a problem there. There are churches, there are Christian churches, Christian nationalist churches having militia night, blessing of the guns. Okay? So this is like, This is like a level at none of us in this room really, we don't know anything about this. This is happening here. We don't have to go that far. And it's not, just to put a point on this thing, most people of faith are not that, okay? And in fact, a great majority of people of faith are for the kinds of things we're talking about tonight. But there are systems of fear and all those things that are keeping people from talking about it. So read The Undertow and you'll learn more about that. I got to call Jeff and tell him I plugged his book. But it's real. I mean, this stuff's real. When I read that book, I went, I don't know anything about America. I mean, I just think most people are sort of moderate,
I have a question for you on. The what did you call it? The Truth Clinic, Truth Pregnancy Clinic. Can you talk a little bit about, because I think as Democrats we talk a lot about we emphasize a lot access to abortion as the choice, but our policies and our stance is supporting people, if they make the choice to have a child, to be able to go forward and have access to resources that would cause that life and that family to prosper and be able to have opportunity. But we end up focusing a lot of what we talk about, I think, because we're reacting to so much push down on reproductive rights, generally speaking. We focus on just the access to abortion. Your clinic, can you talk about what kind of support you're giving to women that say, I really would prefer to have this pregnancy come to term, but I don't have options?
Yeah. Okay, and then I'm going to pass to Tiffany because we want to hear from her on this issue too. Yeah. So just the Truth Pregnancy Resource Center, it's opening in 5 weeks. It's going to be at Greenville and Royal, where the old Southwestern Clinic was. It's going to do 3 things, but it's solidarity work. This is solidarity work. If you walk in and you say, I think I want an abortion, we're going to say, okay, we'll give you a free sonogram. Let's confirm pregnancy first off before we get too wrapped up in this. And then a counselor is going to walk through, okay, let's talk about what that means to you. And not talk them out of it, not talk them into it, but talk them into a conversation of solidarity. If that's the case, they get referred to the travel program and the clinics in New Mexico, because we're working with all those clinics in Albuquerque. If they say, I want to carry a pregnancy, we say, what do you need? And we're developing the resources. We probably should talk to Tiffanny about that. What does good prenatal care look like, and where do you get it? I mean, because the people we think we're going to be serving are not people like who are just going to their ob-gyn or, not, maybe not even Planned Parenthood, I don't know. And if they walk in and say, I definitely want to adopt, we're going to say, okay, well, we work with these organizations, and we're still developing that. Because as a progressive liberal, my concern around adoption has always been this sort of Christocentric and discriminatory adoption centers that are rampant in this area. So we don't, we want to, all kinds of people came into the clinic when they were having abortions, gay, lesbian, transgender, all kinds, right? It happens. There's all kinds of things happen. So, if you're a lesbian couple and you want to adopt and you go to one of these places, they're going to turn you away because they've got quote-unquote family values, which we would probably all disagree with. So our goal is just solidarity. It's to meet the people where they are. And to be a known hub for abortion travel and the truth, essentially. We're going to need Tiffanny, and she's going to need to talk about this.
I would say that to your point of wanting people to have families but not giving them the means to support. Even when people think that anyone who's doing infertility treatments is going to be well off, but that's not the case, okay? A lot of people have insurance or then have to, scrape and scrim and try to figure out how they're going to get the family they desire. And then when they get to the other side of it, it's, like how do I get the prenatal care? How do I get the, postpartum depression help or, anything? I think that our healthcare system in general isn't really structured now in a way to provide people with the means to be successful, but yet and still we don't want to give them options to help themselves be successful by delaying, their families. So I hope that answers some of the questions that you had, but yeah, it's very unfortunate because I understand where ideals are, but we have to go further than just the ideals of it and give people the tools they actually need.
So one of the things that Planned Parenthood Greater Texas has been doing a good job of is actually canvassing neighborhoods to help people understand the services of Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood, we are proudly the #1 providers of abortions in the country. We're very proud of that. Now, Planned Parenthood Greater Texas currently does not provide abortions because of the laws here in Texas, but we're still open, and there's a reason for that. It's because of all the services that we provide. The process that the Reverend was explaining is exactly the process that we use. When someone comes in, if they have decided that they want an abortion, then we help them with that. If someone comes in and they don't have insurance and they need to have cost-efficient way safely have their baby, then we provide them with that. If someone prefers to have a midwife, then we will help them through that process. If someone would like a doula, then we help them with that process. If they're needing birth control, if they're needing sex education, appropriate their child sex education, if they're needing cancer screenings. So that is one of the things that we definitely, which I think is a great question, it's one of the things that we have been actively trying to educate people about, that even we are proud providers of safe and legal abortion care, but that absolutely is not the only thing that is being attacked. And that's not the only thing that we do. So that's a good question.
I think it's interesting that I think that the anti-abortion, I guess I'd say conservatives have been very successful in painting Planned Parenthood as an abortion clinic, period. And I think that you're constantly in a place of trying to push back on that image and that narrative of, no, there's so much more to it than that. And so, yeah, but I think part of my point is that we kind of play into that with always using that terminology and kind of ideas that there are a lot of people that would like to have a family, but they don't see a way forward, and so they feel like that's their only choice, and that's not a choice either. So I think that's something that I want to kind of get in our head and kind of put a little seed out of, maybe we should think about the kind of words that we use and ideas that we have on that, the way we express it. Who else has a question?
Okay, it's kind of an in-the-weeds question. First of all, I just want to say I'm so excited to see all of you here tonight because Dr. Jones said something earlier. She's from LA, so She comes from a different planet than Texas. But she was saying, and I think Democrats, we complain about this amongst ourselves, it's like we aren't raising our voices up enough, right? But you showing up here tonight is part of raising your voice up. So thank you very much. Raising the roof on that one too, a little old school. So one thing I wanted to ask about to Elaine was I read a book a long time ago, not that long ago, but it was called The Pill by Jonathan Ides. Have you read that?
I have not, but it sounds interesting.
Oh my gosh. So the whole story you were telling about with the midwives and the, okay, so it kind of blew my mind on the history of how we came to this moment, how we even got birth control to start with, which is a foundational element of women's liberty. How are we going to do the things we've been doing without that, right? So, and then have the ability to have a sexual life that we want, which we have every right to. So that book was amazing. It's very thick. It went into, she was imprisoned temporarily, but she went for it, and she got the funding to get birth control for women. And that history is so compelling. So I just wanted to throw that out there as another resource for anyone looking for inspiration to continue to lift your voice up. And I wanted to hear if Elaine had read it or any of you guys, because I just wanted to get your reflections on it. But
yeah, I have not read that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I support Planned Parenthood too. I'm still on the community board. I spent 9 years on the PPGT board, governing board. The Sanger history is complicated.
Yeah, definitely. I was about to say.
Yeah, you want to talk about that. The Sanger history is complicated.
Yes.
But one thing that is,
there's some darkness there.
yeah,
too.
one thing that is true, and it's just from my, because from my perspective, it was some of the early distributors of birth control were also clergy. They were Presbyterians and Episcopalians, and because they were listening to the women in their congregations going, I can't keep having babies, right? So, and I mean, most clergy are fairly practical people, and so there was a network of distribution that was going on there. And I think in Texas, they were getting sent, like Planned Parenthood was receiving boxes from like dry cleaners that were stacked with birth control. I remember a picture in the Planned Parenthood thing. So I don't know if that helps you at all.
Well, the book does
yes.
talk about the research that is, there's a dark past, and maybe Dr. Jones can speak to this too a little bit, but no, okay, there's a dark past, of course, we know, in all sorts of medical research, and the history of the pill has a dark past as well, even though what it gave to women was absolutely necessary. So
Yeah, we are a country that is founded and based on white supremacy culture. So there is a dark past on probably everything in our country. Seriously. So, and Planned Parenthood is not exempt from that. Mark, the whole teacher that we do on the history of Planned Parenthood, there are good things that can come out of it too. So what you said is complex is right. It's definitely. But all of that is data, and all of that is history, and all of that is true. We are still recovering from that. We're still trying to heal from that. We haven't yet, and it's a path that we're still working on. But it's yeah. But it's good to be honest about it, though. But I'm looking forward to reading that.
Yeah.
I think they're clapping you off. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming tonight, for taking your time with us and sharing this information. Thank you all for participating in the conversation. I'm sorry, say it again. Oh, Dr. Garcia, yes, thank you for reminding me. Do you want to come up and just talk to us for just a second? While she's coming up, I want to point out that Preston made and I replicated the little QR codes that are on your table. In case you want to join RAD, you've got a QR code on your table that you can scan and become a patron member of RAD. So use that if you'd like to. And Dr. Garcia, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Good evening. I won't take very much of your time, but I want to make a few points. I have an opponent. My opponent is someone who's been involved with DISD for a long time. However, that isn't good because he's also, in his personal life, been involved with charter companies. So I want you to be aware of that because he'll push his DISD stuff at you, but he doesn't talk about the other. As you well know, I'm a real champion for public schools. That is the answer for our country, and the most important thing we can do is educate everyone so that they can have the pride of standing on their own 2 feet and support themselves. The main thing I want to tell you that's going to be exciting is we're going to be redoing the downtown El Centro, and that brings a lot of people out, like developers, business people. And I want you to know I have no business interests, and I have no reason to pal up with the developer. So I hope you'll keep that in mind when you go to vote for, I'm in District 1 up here, yes, but I will have a vote in what's happening in the downtown area. They've got all kinds of wild plans. I don't know exactly how we're going to go, but I think it's important that you know that that's there. What else shall I tell you? There's so many things to talk about, and it's late. But you'll hear me again. Please remember me and vote for me. May 4th. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, they make these school board elections off from everything else so that people don't notice them so much. So please remember to vote every single time there's a ballot available, and remember to vote for Dr. Catalina Garcia, please. Frank?
I had a question for you, Doctor. Could you comment or talk about the eclipse festivals that are going on in the community college or the colleges now?
Well, just besides the fact that they're having an eclipse party at almost every campus, right. I hope that everyone will avail themselves of this. They're also having it at the Discovery Gardens at the botanical area. So how can you miss something like that? Lord, we won't see it for forever or for a long time. And it's a wonderful experience. My husband and I drove up to Wyoming to see one recently, well, the last time. And you just, I can't describe the feelings. You have got to have this experience. It is very much, sir? And it's free. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I forget that part. Yes, and it's free at the colleges.
All right. Well, thank you all again very much for coming tonight. Grab another beer if you'd like to. Did you want to say something?
No, just say have another beer.
Have another beer. Please have another beer. We're not closing yet. And just full disclosure, we have a minimum of the number of beers that we have to buy tonight. So, you know, I'm not saying fill up, but if you want another beer, have another beer. Thank you guys. We're not going to be at staycation at the end of this month because it's Easter weekend and 5-day weekend and all have you, people traveling, what have you. We'll be back here next month on the 3rd Thursday, and we'll be getting in touch with you about painting our take.